Thank you very much, David. Good morning.
Good morning.
How many of you are able to speak Chinese? Raise your hand. Very good. I counted 7. How many of you have ever worked or visited China? 27. How many of you are interested in China? 97. Thank you very much. All right. So this is a good start. I'm the middle person in between Brazil and the British Council. So I'm going to focus on China only, or the Greater China, if you want to say it, including Chinese-speaking communities in Hong Kong, Macau, Singapore, and other parts in Asia. So I chose a topic called the impact of English in China. I want to give you a broader perspective with some statistics of what is the situation in China. And I'm Chinese. I was born and raised in China. I now work in the United States. So I try to offer an insider's perspective from outside. It is not purely subjective. It is objective as well, so that you will get a fair perspective on this very particular issue. And this is a featured presentation for TIRF, not a test. What is TIRF? The International Research Foundation for English Language Education. And all of you will pass a test when you walk out of this room, remembering what TIRF stands for. And I've done something for Cassie. Cassie, is that right?
That's perfect.
Because when I got the name first, I was puzzled a little bit. Now I know that TIRF means something we are all caring about. And all of you should really join, do something for and with TIRF. So this is a little bit of promotion. And by the way, I'm from Tucson, Arizona, unfortunately, Tucson. So when it comes to China, when the word China is mentioned, what do you think about? People. People. Because everywhere you go, you are in a crowded people, in shopping, in education, in schools, wherever you go. So this is a phenomenon. So if you want to do something in China, you have to consider its people. In business, in industry, in tourism, in education. And you can become millionaire overnight if you are right in doing something. And when we have people, so many people, we know that whatever we do in education, in language education, it's very competitive. And even though there are lots of opportunities, students or teachers will compete for positions. One of the examples of passing the examination and try to get a spot in any admission. And I was one of them in those kind of testing in 1977 when China restored its college entrance examination. And 1 out of 100 people over the past 10 years, starting from 1967 to 1977, got the fortune to go to the university. So now let's look at the perspective. And our colleague, Michael, is going to talk about the situation in Europe. So I'd like to use your title, British Council, to quote a publication about English. English is critical for countries' successful participation in the global economy. And it provides individuals with access to crucial knowledge, skills, and employment opportunities, and enables organizations to create and sustain international skills. So this is happening around the globe. What about Asia? The role of English Asia, we try to narrow down a little bit. And English as a multinational tool is having significant and profound effects on Asia's language policies, educational systems, and patterns of language use, according to Bolton, Kirkpatrick, and our dear colleague David Noonan. David, 2003. The current status English in China. Now this is something that we'd like to talk about. More than 300 million Chinese are studying English. That's the entire US population. According to a speech delivered by the Premier Wen Jiabao 2 years ago. And this has not counted many learners outside school systems. So there are more than 300 million. Secondly, McKinsey Corporation estimates that China's foreign language business is worth about 2.1 billion annually. So it's a huge enterprise. Current status of English China, that many parents want to send their children to study abroad, which creates a huge market in English-speaking countries. And in universities, in intensive English programs in the United States, there are lots of international students But more recently, there are lots of Asian students. Among them, 60 or 70% are from China. In the intensive English language program at the University of Arizona, for instance, 75% are Chinese. So all ESL teachers are puzzled how to deal with these kids, because some of them were sent by their parents, not out of their own motivation. So we have to deal with lots of issues with this increasing population. At the graduate level, at the undergraduate level, you can see lots of admission for Chinese students because they are able to afford financially now. The current status of English in China. So many English learners and teachers want to teach Chinese abroad in English-speaking countries. What can they do? They have to speak English well in order to be eligible to teach abroad. This becomes another source of motivation to learn English, because for the first time they can experience the superiority of native speakers in teaching any language. All right, now I'd like to highlight, by citing some resources, 6 areas of impact of English in China, which hopefully will give us some idea about the big picture. So formal English. English as a mandatory subject for schools and universities. So all schools will offer English. English is one of the 3 main mandatory subjects in examinations: English, Chinese, and mathematics. Starting from 2001, national language policy was set that all grade level, also elementary schools will offer English at grade level 3. In some big cities like Beijing, Guangzhou, or Shanghai, if possible, they should offer English in kindergartens and grade level 1. So that has become a national policy. National English curriculum standards was set about 7 years ago. Now it's under the revision stage, and it provides a benchmark for all school kids to learn English. And even though it says that some underdeveloped areas, regions, would allow some flexibility, but none of them is willing to take lower standards. They all want to compete at national standards level. National English examinations. So English test is become a sensation in China. In colleges, for instance, we have standardized the national test called the CET4. It's a college English test. And for those non-English majors, we have to pass CET4 and then CET6 in order to get good jobs. A few years ago, this was required for employment. So all the kids coming to the university would do nothing but passing the test, and then they consider English is done. Mathematics and science being taught in English in many schools. This has been considered as experimental model for many schools, what is called a bilingual education. They try to offer English in subject matters, and many professors don't speak English well. So they use English PowerPoints and Chinese conversation. So that, or vice versa, whatever creative way they do. So lots of kids have to understand in Chinese and read in English. And STEPS, this is the national standards for teachers. STEPS means standards for teachers in elementary school, secondary school, and senior schools. So that means the standards for teachers. I'm one of the developers for the standards. It's going to be implemented soon. So all the teachers in China, English teachers China, will have to pass this test in order to be eligible to receive certificate. And I think TIRF or TESOL has a role in this development. So this is formal education. What about private language sectors? I use a few examples. Okay, one of them is called Disney English, was established in 2008. And now they have more than 13 schools in Shanghai and Beijing. Most recently, in my hometown, Suzhou, it was established Disney School. So the next 3 to 5 years, there will be about 300 Disney schools in China. And this has attracted lots of kids because they provide timely stories, music, and immersive environment of Mickey Mouse and another private sector is also well known. It's called New Oriental School. And as you all know, that this is a private sector started by preparing students for GRE, IBT, TOEFL, and IELTS. 70% of students coming to the United States will have already taken tests or received training through this New Oriental School. and this is a national chain, and they now focus more in other areas. English First was designated to be trainer for the Olympic Games, and they trained security officers and taxi drivers. So when I was in Beijing in 2008, I talked with one taxi driver. I said, what if someone speaks English? What would you do? And he said, we have to receive training about 10 to 15 sentences. If not, we'll press a button and spontaneous people will speak English with the passenger and translate automatically to Chinese. So that is also become the national kind of measurement and implementation for English enhancement. And this is another example, online teaching and a game platform, game-oriented learning, and this is called a WizWorld. And a number of graduate students from MIT wanted to invest in China. They developed a program by using the standard games to incentivize students to learn, and also offer speech simulation and also on-site online feedback. So this is also something very interesting. It's developing very rapidly. And of course, you all know about this guy called Crazy English. And there are about 2 million people following this method. Basically, the students will be relieved from inhibition of learning, shouting and yelling among the trees, because no one is going to pick up grammar mistakes for them. So this was also featured in New Yorkers and considered as something crazy English. So these kind of things are happening in China a lot. So according to Sylvia, you talked about business, private sectors, and this is very interesting. Now let's talk about some other areas. Academic research. Proficiency in English is being considered as a prerequisite in academic discourse because of high demand for professors to publish in international peer-reviewed journals. So many professors have to try publish their research in English. English is being used in international conferences in China. There will be many international conferences. In 2006, we held the first TESOL symposium on English education. Donald Freeman, David Noonan, and I, and also some colleagues from Shantou sitting right here. So we had that, we conducted a conference in English. And this year in July, TESOL is going to have another symposium on language policy and teacher development in Beijing, Normal University. And again, will be in English. So because of these international exchanges conferences, the level of English is promoted, and we are required to use English. Universities publish academic journals and prestige in publishing the international journals and to present in international conferences. What about media? English has gained an increasing presence in newspapers and periodicals. There are lots of magazines, journals in China that are published in English. For instance, China Daily, Beijing Review, Shanghai Daily, Shanghai Star, Beijing Weekend, 21st Century English, the World of English, and the World of Chinese. English has been a strong presence in media like CCTV 9, China Radio International, and Internet is becoming a major force in the expansion of English in China. About the statistics, as you can see, that it's shocking with the 298 million netizens. Business, about 40,000 foreign companies being set up in China annually, with a total of 25 million employees in 2007. Many Chinese businesses have English names, for instance, China Telecom, China Mobile, and many Chinese want to have English names. And they create fancy names like money, dollar, and happy, and they use all the names as a fashion to identify themselves as someone who is related to English. Faxes and email communication are also being conducted in English, and much Chinese literature and documents are being translated into English because of for the access of information from outside the world. Tourism, about 18 million, is that right? Yeah, 352,700 foreign tourists have visited China between 2008, January 2003 and 2008. The use of English in hotels, tour groups, and travel agencies being a must, and tourist information signs, airports, everywhere you have English signs. Let me show you some examples. Wei Long, the wine smoke, wine goes. This is literary translation, but so you don't understand, you have to read the Chinese characters in order to understand. There's a wine shop, say wine goes, and it's an airline pocket service, and let the wealth arithmetic figure become the vital property, and smoke wine, and mine, and okay. So you probably, I don't want to see many of them, but one thing I do as a professional in English, that wherever I stay, I try to look at their English, and usually pick up 5 to 6 places, and then talk with the manager. So, are you going to give me a free dinner? They probably do. Because it's so fast, they don't have time to proofread lots of things. It's so interesting. So anyway, so what are some of the issues as a result of the expansion of English and impact of English in China? One of the things I'd like to talk about, some impact or emerging issues we need to be aware of. The role and status of English in China has reached unprecedented heights, although fundamental cultural and political tensions remain, according to the latest publication by Fan Anwei, and in which a chapter was cited. So sociolinguistic transition. The internet, for instance, has changed everything, and the rate at which Chinese has taken to its new technology is bound to have significant impact on English language awareness, learning, and use. The increasing presence of competent Chinese English contributions in the internet forums is the indication of the speed of progress. So this is moving very fast. Linguistic creativity. A new variety of English, what is called a China English, is emerging in the literature and the media. There are lots of researchers talking about English Asian language, English as an Asian language, English as a China language, in the midst of world English's movement, and English as a lingua franca. So China English means that someone from China or speaks Chinese speak English in a variety that is neither native-like nor non-native-like. So it means that when you listen to me, have you listened to me for 10 minutes? So can you characterize my English? Is it British English or American English? None. So my English is a variety of China English. Because sometimes I speak English intelligently, if you can say, because you can understand, otherwise you won't laugh, right? And, but then you never think whether I speak British English or American English. You only care about what I talk about. And then I would say that lots of professionals in China speak very good English, but they have never had great opportunities to live abroad. And when you talk with them, they are very well communicated, and they can express their ideas very well, no difficulty in subject matter. And so those speakers will eventually forge to influence the variety of English, and that is China. And even more interesting is that the traditional divide between second language and foreign language becomes fuzzy because of this immersion, because of the more foreigners, more foreign companies, more intercultural communication in English. And when people speak English in China, for instance, they might come from different parts of the world, you know. And that creates a problem, like in Shanghai or in other areas, that you can speak English just any time, and you will realize people will respond in English. So when I was at the airport in Beijing, and I was at the wrong terminal, so I rushed to another terminal, and there was a huge line, and I just walked to the front and politely talked, just out of hurry. I just said, can I, just move forward? Can you let me jump in here? And I didn't know, I shouldn't have spoken English, but I used English, and suddenly a gentleman looked at me, are you kidding? Then I said, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I spoke English. So this kind of opportunity, occasion happens all the time. So in major cities, you don't need to worry, because some people will speak English with you. So this is very interesting. Linguistic imperialism revisited. As you know, the literature about Phillips says that 10, 15 years ago, we always think about English invasion, imperialism, hurt the national identity. But nowadays, it's coming from within. It is those who really want to learn English in order to gain the prestige and the status to the social network. And it's not imposed from outside. So this has changed. Imperialism from inside is a drive, is a big drive, motivation and investment for nationals in China. So we have to rethink about this kind of term. And social divisiveness, a linguistic capital, English is fervently pursued by all people in society, economically and socio-politically. I need to hurry, okay? Okay, and I would say that some people gain advantage, some not, so there creates some social divisiveness. And the language maintenance of Chinese is threatened because the children will spend a lot of time in learning English from early on. They will reduce the time to spend on Chinese literature. Calligraphy, for instance, no one is going to practice anymore. They can use cellular phone, internet to type Chinese characters. But calligraphy is considered the solid literacy base for Chinese. So those kind of things, how can we resolve those kind of issues now that we have so much enthusiasm invested in English learning? Another hidden threat is that home and minority language loss. And lots of people were required to learn Mandarin Chinese, 普通话, in schools. And now, on top of that, English. What about their minority languages? There are 54 minorities in China. And if they don't practice at home, and they were usually at a boarding school, and all they speak is either Mandarin or English. So that will threaten the minority maintenance. So English is powerful, very powerful, but English is not almighty. Special care must be paid when policies regarding the medium instruction in schools are being determined. And English is not the only international language. All other languages, such as Chinese, are used for international communication. Think about the first picture I showed you. How many people are learning English? So imagine when 300 million Chinese are well trained in English, what will happen then? They can have one-on-one coaching to Americans, so all Americans will become bilingual, Chinese and English. So that is the future. So I want to say we should really transform tomorrow today, make Americans or English-speaking speakers to learn foreign languages, Spanish or Chinese. And also, we have to let you know that this is my favorite picture in Tibet, or not Tibet, in Xinjiang province. And even this kid wants to learn English, to move to cities like Beijing or Shanghai to have his future invested. So I want to thank you again